In the city of Doroba, the morning sun rose slowly above the tall glass buildings. People were rushing through the streets, some heading to work, others selling fruits and newspapers by the roadside. The city was alive with noise, energy, and ambition. Among the tall buildings stood Cambitech Limited, one of the biggest companies in the city. Inside, the offices were bright and shiny, the smell of new furniture still fresh. It was a place where many people dreamed of working. That morning, a young woman named Lena stepped out of a taxi in front of the building. She looked at her reflection in the glass door and smiled proudly. She wore a neat blue dress, golden earrings, and high heels that clicked on the floor as she walked. Her hair was perfectly done, and her perfume filled the air. Lena had just finished university and had been chosen for a job in the marketing department. It was her first real job and she was excited, but also a little too proud. As she entered the lobby, she looked around with sharp eyes. Everything looked perfect: the shining floor, the flower pots near the walls, the quiet hum of computers. She smiled to herself. "Yes," she whispered, "this is where I belong." Near the door, an old woman was slowly mopping the floor. Her gray hair was tied under a scarf, and her uniform was faded but clean. Her name was Mama Ao, one of the oldest cleaners in the company. She had worked there for many years, always quiet, always polite. Every morning she arrived before sunrise to make sure the offices were clean and ready for the workers. But that day she was still finishing the main hallway when Lena arrived. The floor was slightly wet and her bucket stood beside her. Mama Ao moved carefully, her back a little bent from years of hard work. She did not notice Lena at first. Lena stopped, looking down at her expensive shoes. A few drops of water had splashed near her feet. Her face changed instantly. She frowned and raised her voice. "Excuse me. Can't you see people are walking here?" she said sharply. "You should clean before people arrive. Look, you're making the floor wet and dirty again." Mama Ao turned quickly, startled. She looked at the young woman with calm eyes, her hands still holding the mop. "I'm sorry, madam," she said softly. "I will finish soon. I just wanted to make sure the entrance stays clean." But Lena was not listening. She shook her head and sighed loudly. "People should know their place. This is an office, not a market. You can't just block the way with your bucket." The sound of her voice echoed across the hallway. A few other employees looked up from their desks. Some of them frowned, others lowered their eyes, pretending not to see what was happening. Everyone in the office respected Mama Ao. She was old enough to be their mother, and though she was poor, she worked harder than anyone else. Mama Ao smiled faintly. "I understand, madam. I will move the bucket." She stepped aside and began to wipe the floor faster, her old hands trembling a little. Lena rolled her eyes and walked past her, holding her purse close. "Unbelievable," she muttered under her breath. "How can anyone be this slow?" When she entered the elevator, a young man named Tariq, who worked in accounting, glanced at her and said quietly, "You shouldn't talk to her like that. She's been here longer than all of us." Lena looked at him with surprise. "She's just a cleaner," she replied coldly. "Why should I care? Everyone has their own job. Mine is not to babysit old women." Tariq didn't answer. He just looked down, shaking his head slowly. Inside the elevator, Lena smiled again, brushing invisible dust off her dress. She didn't feel bad, she thought she was right. In her mind, she believed that success meant being above others. She didn't understand that respect had nothing to do with money or position. Meanwhile, Mama Ao continued cleaning the floor quietly. Her knees hurt and her back ached, but she kept working with care. As she wiped the wet marks from the tiles, she whispered softly to herself, "Some hearts take time to learn." She was not angry. Life had taught her that pride often hides a lack of wisdom. A few minutes later, the manager of the marketing team, Mr. Cato, walked in. He greeted everyone warmly. "Good morning, team," he said with a big smile. When he saw Lena, he nodded. "You must be the new assistant. Welcome to Cambitech." Lena smiled brightly. "Thank you, sir. I'm happy to be here." As they walked toward her new desk, she passed by Mama Ao again. The old woman gave her a gentle smile, but Lena looked away, pretending not to see. The morning went on. Lena was shown her office, her computer, and her tasks for the week. She was smart and quick to learn, but her tone was often sharp. She didn't greet the security guard. She didn't thank the tea lady who brought her water. And whenever she saw Mama Ao cleaning, she sighed loudly and looked annoyed. At lunchtime, Lena went down to the cafeteria. She ordered a sandwich and sat alone at a corner table, scrolling through her phone. From the other side of the room, she could see Mama Ao cleaning the tables after the morning rush. The old woman moved slowly but carefully, humming a soft song as she worked. Lena watched her for a moment, then shook her head. People like her, she thought, they waste their whole lives cleaning after others. She didn't notice that a few older employees were watching her, people who knew that the young woman's pride would one day teach her a hard lesson. As the day ended, Mama Ao stood at the gate, holding her cleaning cloths. Her shift was over. She greeted everyone who passed with a smile, even Lena. "Good evening, madam," she said kindly. Lena didn't reply. She just nodded slightly and walked away toward her car, thinking about her bright future. That night, as Mama Ao walked home, she looked up at the sky and whispered a quiet prayer. She didn't pray for herself but for the young woman who had scolded her. "Let her heart learn humility before life teaches it the hard way," she said softly. The city lights of Doroba shone brightly around her as she disappeared into the night, leaving the office clean and shining, and leaving behind a lesson that had just begun to form. Later that morning, the office was filled with quiet excitement. Everyone had been told that the company's CEO, Mr. Juma, would be visiting the marketing department. It was not an ordinary day. People were fixing their ties, brushing their jackets, and checking their desks to make sure everything looked perfect. Even the usually calm office air felt heavier, as if something important was about to happen. Lena sat at her desk, straightening her papers for the 5th time. She had heard many stories about Mr. Juma. Some said he was one of the richest men in Doroba. Others said he was a genius who had started the company from nothing but a small laptop in his mother's kitchen. What amazed people most was that, even after all his success, he was said to be a kind and humble man. But Lena didn't think much about that. In her mind, she believed that powerful people only respected those who looked and spoke like them, confident, bold, and impressive. She looked at her reflection in the computer screen, fixed her hair, and smiled. "Today," she whispered to herself, "I'll show him I'm not like the others. He'll see that I'm smart." The sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. Conversation stopped. Chairs squeaked quietly as people turned toward the door. Then the manager, Mr. Cato, entered with a tall man beside him. "Everyone," Mr. Cato said proudly, "please welcome our CEO, Mr. Juma." The room fell silent for a moment. Mr. Juma was not what Lena had expected. He wasn't wearing a fancy suit. His jacket was simple, his shoes plain. He had a calm face and warm, thoughtful eyes. When he smiled, it was not the smile of someone trying to show power. It was gentle, almost fatherly. "Good morning, everyone," he said in a deep but kind voice. "I'm happy to finally meet the new members of our team." People clapped softly. Lena clapped too, but her eyes followed him closely, studying his every move. He walked around the room, greeting everyone by name. He seemed to remember small details about each employee, where they came from, what projects they worked on, even who had been sick recently. This surprised Lena. How could a man so important know so much about ordinary workers? When Mr. Juma reached her desk, Lena stood up quickly and smiled. "Good morning, sir," she said, her voice slightly louder than needed. "I'm Lena, your new marketing assistant. I studied at Doroba Business College and graduated top of my class. I've always admired Cambitech and dreamed of working here because I believe I can bring new ideas to help the company grow." Her words came out fast like a rehearsed speech. Mr. Juma listened quietly, his expression calm. "That's good, Lena," he said softly. "We always welcome new ideas here. I hope you'll learn as much as you teach." Lena nodded quickly. "Oh yes, sir. I'm a fast learner. I just think the company could improve its branding. I have some strategies that could make our image more modern. Some things here look a bit old-fashioned, if you don't mind me saying." A few people in the room exchanged glances. Her tone was a little too bold, almost disrespectful. But Mr. Juma didn't seem offended. He only smiled faintly. "Interesting," he said. "Sometimes old things have strong roots. But we'll talk more about that later." He moved on to the next employee, shaking hands and asking about their work. As the meeting continued, Lena couldn't stop thinking about how she had spoken. She felt proud. "He'll remember me," she thought. I sounded confident. That's how leaders talk. But not everyone agreed. After the meeting ended, a woman named Asha, who had been with the company for 5 years, leaned closer and said quietly, "Lena, you should be careful how you talk to him. Mr. Juma values respect more than big words." Lena frowned. "I was just being professional," she said. "If you don't speak boldly, people ignore you." Asha smiled kindly. "Maybe. But sometimes wisdom speaks quietly." Then she walked away, leaving Lena thinking about her words. Later that afternoon, Mr. Juma called for a group discussion in the main hall. Everyone gathered around a long wooden table. On one end sat the senior managers, on the other the newer employees including Lena. Mr. Juma began to speak about the company's vision. We built Cambitech to help young people find jobs and to support small businesses in our communities, he said. Our goal is not just profit but purpose. We must never forget the people who make this company strong, from the engineers to the cleaners. When he said the word cleaners, Lena shifted uncomfortably in her chair. The image of Mama Ao, the old woman she had scolded earlier, flashed in her mind. She quickly pushed the thought away and crossed her legs. Mr. Juma continued, I believe success means lifting others, not stepping over them. If we forget that, we lose our way. His eyes moved slowly across the room, stopping for a brief moment on Lena. She looked down at her notes, pretending to write something. Then one of the managers asked for volunteers to share ideas on how to improve the company's public image. Lena's hand shot up immediately. Sir, she said confidently, I think we should focus more on showing our luxury side. The company's image should match your status, Mr. Juma. We could redesign the logo, maybe host big events, sponsor high-class shows, make Cambitech look more premium. There was silence. A few people nodded slightly but others looked unsure. Mr. Juma leaned back in his chair. Luxury, he repeated slowly. And what about the small clients who cannot afford luxury? Well, Lena said, they'll be inspired to aim higher. It's about showing success, not struggle. A few eyebrows rose. Mr. Juma smiled, but there was something thoughtful in his eyes, something Lena couldn't read. That's an interesting point, he said. We'll think about it. The meeting went on for another hour. Lena spoke 2 more times, often interrupting others without realizing it. She wanted to prove she was the smartest in the room. When the meeting finally ended, everyone stood and began to leave. Mr. Juma stayed behind, talking quietly with Mr. Kato near the window. Lena lingered nearby, pretending to fix her files, hoping to overhear them. She caught a few words, something about character and values. Then Mr. Juma said softly, sometimes, you can see a person's heart in how they treat those below them. Lena's fingers froze. The words felt like they were meant for her. But she quickly pushed the thought aside and smiled at herself in the window's reflection. He must have been talking about someone else, she whispered. Outside, the day was bright and workers filled the cafeteria with laughter. Mama Ao was cleaning the corridor again, humming her soft tune. As Mr. Juma walked past her, he stopped for a moment and greeted her warmly, asking about her day. She smiled and said, all is well, my son. Lena watched them from a distance. For a moment, she wondered why such a rich man would waste time talking to a cleaner. Then she shook her head and went back to her desk, confident that she was on the path to success, still unaware that her proud words and careless actions had already begun to shape a lesson she would never forget. The clock struck 1, and the office began to empty as workers made their way to the cafeteria. The smell of fried plantain, rice, and stew filled the air. Laughter and the clatter of trays echoed down the hallways. Lena stretched in her chair and smiled to herself. The morning meeting had gone well, at least in her eyes. She believed she had impressed Mr. Juma with her boldness and ideas. He'll remember me, she whispered, taking her purse and walking out proudly. The cafeteria was bright and lively. Groups of workers sat at long tables, chatting and eating. Some were talking about work, others about football, and a few just laughed at small jokes. Lena walked in, her heels clicking loudly on the tiled floor. She went straight to the counter and ordered grilled chicken with rice and a cold drink. As she waited, she noticed an old figure at the far end of the room. It was Mama Ao, the same cleaner she had scolded earlier that morning. The old woman was wiping the tables, her faded uniform slightly damp from cleaning water. She worked slowly, humming a tune, an old song from her village, her movements calm and careful. Every time someone left a messy tray, she smiled and cleaned without complaint. Lena frowned. She couldn't understand how anyone could find peace in such a lowly job. As she picked up her food, she muttered under her breath, always cleaning, always working. Doesn't she ever rest? She walked to an empty table and sat down near the window, but her eyes kept going back to Mama Ao. The old woman's hands were rough from years of scrubbing, but there was a strange grace in the way she moved, quiet, patient, steady. After a few minutes, Mama Ao came to wipe the table next to Lena's. She smiled warmly. Good afternoon, my child, she said kindly. I hope your first day is going well. Lena rolled her eyes. You're still working? Don't you get tired of cleaning all day? She asked, her tone half curious, half mocking. Mama Ao stopped wiping and looked at her gently. My dear, she said in her calm voice, no work is too small if it's done with honesty. Every job has value. Lena laughed, a short, sharp laugh. That's what poor people always say, she replied. You only say that because you don't have a choice. If you had money, you'd never clean tables again. The cafeteria went quiet. Two workers sitting nearby looked up, their spoons frozen in midair. Everyone knew Mama Ao. She was respected, even loved by many in the office. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Mama Ao smiled softly, her eyes kind but sad. Maybe, she said quietly, but the truth does not change because of who says it. Her words were simple, yet they hung in the air like a heavy silence. Lena looked away, uncomfortable but still pretending she didn't care. She took a sip of her drink and scrolled through her phone. At that exact moment, the door to the cafeteria opened. Mr. Juma walked in, dressed in his simple suit. He often joined the staff for lunch, saying he liked to eat where his people ate. The workers stood a little straighter as he entered. He smiled and greeted a few of them by name before taking a tray. Lena didn't notice him at first. She was still talking, her voice loud enough for others to hear. I mean, look around, she said, pointing toward Mama Ao. We have all these old cleaners walking around like ghosts. It makes the place look poor. We should hire younger staff, maybe train them better. The workers nearby glanced nervously toward the entrance. Mr. Juma was standing just a few feet behind her, holding his tray, listening quietly. He didn't say a word. Mama Ao saw him and gave a small respectful nod. But Lena was still talking, not realizing who was standing there. People like her don't even belong in offices like this, she continued. It's sad, really? Then she heard a calm voice behind her. Is it sad because she works hard, or because you think work is only valuable when it looks easy? Lena froze. Her stomach tightened. Slowly she turned her head, and there was Mr. Juma looking at her with quiet eyes. The room was completely silent now. Even the clatter of dishes had stopped. Oh, sir, I didn't see you there, Lena stammered. Mr. Juma placed his tray on the table and looked at Mama Ao. Good afternoon, Mama, he said warmly. You're still taking care of us, I see. Mama Ao smiled, her eyes shining softly. Yes, my son. The work never ends, but it keeps the place bright. He nodded with respect. Indeed it does. Then he turned to Lena. His face was calm, but his voice carried weight. Lena, he said slowly, do you know who built this company? Lena blinked. You, sir, she said quickly. He smiled slightly. No. I only founded it. But it was built by many hands, the engineers, the guards, the cooks, the cleaners. Without them, there would be no company. Without them, there would be no comfort for people like you or me. Lena lowered her eyes, feeling a strange pressure in her chest. Mr. Juma continued, when I started Cambatech, I didn't have fancy offices or big clients. My first office was smaller than a storage room. My first desk was made of old wood and I cleaned it myself every night. My mother told me something that I still believe today, that pride makes a man forget where he came from. He paused for a moment. And when we forget where we came from, we stop deserving where we are. The cafeteria was silent except for the quiet hum of the ceiling fan. Everyone could feel the meaning in his words. Lena felt her cheeks burn. Her earlier confidence had vanished. She opened her mouth to speak but found no words. Mr. Juma turned to Mama Ao again. Thank you for keeping this place shining, he said sincerely. We all depend on your hands more than we realize. Mama Ao bowed her head humbly. It is my joy to serve, sir. After a short silence, Mr. Juma looked at the workers around the room. Let us all remember, he said, greatness is not measured by the work we do, but by the heart we do it with. He picked up his tray and moved to a corner table. Slowly, conversations began again, but they were softer now, more thoughtful. Lena sat still for a long time. Her food had gone cold, but she couldn't eat. She kept seeing the old woman's face, tired but peaceful, humble but strong. For the first time, Lena felt something she couldn't name. It wasn't shame alone, it was realization. As she left the cafeteria, she passed by Mama Ao, who was cleaning another table. She wanted to say sorry, but the words stuck in her throat. The old woman looked up and smiled at her kindly, as if nothing bad had happened. That smile pierced Lena's heart more deeply than any angry words could. When she returned to her desk, she sat in silence. Outside the window, the city of Doroba moved as always. Buses honking, people rushing, buildings shining under the afternoon sun. But inside Lena's heart, something quiet began to change. She didn't know it yet, but the lesson she had started to learn in that cafeteria would stay with her forever. The morning sun poured through the glass windows of Cambatech, painting the floor in soft golden light. The office was quieter than usual. People moved quickly, whispering to one another. Word had spread that the CEO, Mr. Juma, had called for a special meeting in the main conference room. No one knew what it was about, but there was a sense of curiosity and tension in the air. Lena sat at her desk, pretending to type. In truth, her heart was not calm. The memory of what had happened in the cafeteria the previous day still clung to her. She could not forget the look on Mr. Juma's face when he had heard her insult Mama Ao. She had not been able to sleep well that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the old woman's gentle smile and her own proud words echoing back like an accusation. Still, she tried to act confident. "It's fine," she whispered to herself. "He probably forgot about it." She fixed her hair and straightened her blouse. "I just need to focus on my work." But deep inside she was nervous. At exactly 9 o'clock, the company bell rang, signaling the start of the meeting. One by one, the employees walked into the large conference hall. The air smelled faintly of coffee and paper. The walls were decorated with pictures of the company's early days, old black and white photos of a small office, a younger Mr. Juma, and a few smiling workers. Everyone took their seats around the long wooden table. The chairs creaked softly as they sat. Lena sat near the middle, just close enough to see the front clearly. Mr. Juma stood near the whiteboard, dressed in his usual simple suit. He looked calm, almost peaceful, but his eyes were serious. "Good morning, everyone," he said, his voice warm but steady. "Thank you for coming. Today's meeting is not about business or targets. It is about something far more important: respect." The room went silent. Even the hum of the air conditioner seemed quieter. Mr. Juma continued, "Yesterday something happened here in our office. Something small, but it revealed something big. It reminded me of where I came from and of the values we sometimes forget when we chase success." Lena's hands tightened in her lap. Her heart began to beat faster. She looked down, hoping he would not mention her name. He paused, letting his words sink in. Then, with a gentle smile, he said, "Before we begin, I want to introduce someone special, someone who represents the heart of this company." He turned toward the door. Everyone turned their heads too. The door opened slowly. The soft sound of footsteps filled the room. And then, to everyone's surprise, Mama Ao walked in. She was wearing her clean uniform, her scarf neatly tied around her gray hair. She looked humble but strong, her eyes warm and kind. The entire room went still. Some people gasped quietly, others sat up straight, unsure what was happening. Lena's breath caught in her throat. Her eyes widened in shock. Mr. Juma walked toward Mama Ao and held her arm gently, helping her stand beside him. Then he looked at the employees. "Everyone," he said softly, "this is my mother, the woman who raised me by cleaning offices like this one so that I could study and build this company." A murmur ran through the room. Some people covered their mouths in surprise. Others simply stared, eyes wide, hearts touched. Lena froze completely. The words hit her like a stone. Her mouth went dry, her face turned pale, and a wave of shame rushed through her. The woman she had mocked, the one she had called poor and too old to work, was not just any cleaner, she was the mother of the CEO. Mr. Juma continued speaking, his voice calm but full of emotion. "When I was young," he said, "my mother worked day and night cleaning offices, washing clothes, and doing whatever she could to make sure I stayed in school. I remember watching her come home tired but never complaining. She used to tell me, 'Son, one day work hard enough that your hands lift others, not just yourself.'" He looked at Mama Ao with deep respect. "Everything I have, everything this company has, started because of her sacrifices." Mama Ao smiled shyly. "I only did what any mother would do," she said softly. "I'm proud of my son. And I'm proud of everyone here who works honestly, no matter the job." The employees clapped, some wiping tears from their eyes. The moment was pure and emotional. Even the senior managers stood to applaud. But Lena could not clap. Her hands trembled. Her eyes filled with tears, and she felt a lump rise in her throat. Every word cut deeper than the last. She wanted to disappear, to hide under the table. Mr. Juma looked around the room and said, "Sometimes we see people like my mother and think they are less important. We forget that every clean floor, every meal, every piece of work we enjoy depends on someone we don't always notice. But those people are the foundation of everything." He paused, his eyes soft but firm. "Yesterday someone in this office spoke harshly to a cleaner. I do not say this to embarrass anyone but to remind us all, greatness is not in titles or money. It is in humility." The room was silent again. Everyone knew who he was talking about, but no one looked at Lena. She felt as if the walls were closing in on her. Her stomach twisted painfully. Mr. Juma turned to his mother. "Mama," he said with a gentle smile, "please tell them what you always told me when I was a boy." Mama Ao chuckled softly, her eyes twinkling. "Ah, my son," she said. "I always told him that a good heart shines brighter than a rich one. I told him that pride makes the spirit heavy, but kindness makes it light." The employees smiled. A few nodded, whispering agreement. Then Mr. Juma said, "Let us all remember, respect is not given because of power. It is given because of humanity." When the meeting ended, everyone stood and clapped again, this time with true feeling. Mr. Juma and his mother walked out together, her small hand in his. As soon as the door closed behind them, people began whispering softly. "I can't believe that's his mother," one said. "She's so humble." Another added, "Now I understand why he's the way he is." Lena stayed in her chair, her eyes still fixed on the door. Tears rolled down her cheeks silently. She didn't care who saw. Her chest felt heavy, her heart filled with regret. She remembered every cruel word she had said, every time she rolled her eyes, every time she thought she was better. Now those words echoed back in her mind, sharp and cold. After the meeting, she walked quietly to the hallway. From the corner, she saw Mama Ao and Mr. Juma standing together, talking and laughing softly. For a moment, Lena just watched. The scene was beautiful, a rich man who still treated his mother with love and honor. Something inside her broke open, the wall of pride she had built for so long. She realized that all her beauty, her education, and her confidence meant nothing if she couldn't show respect. She took a deep breath, wiped her tears, and walked slowly back to her desk. Everyone around her was still talking about the revelation, but she didn't join in. She sat quietly, her mind full of thoughts. That day changed something in her. She didn't know how to make things right yet, but she knew one thing for sure: she could never look at Mama Ao the same way again. Lena sat at her desk long after everyone else had left. The office was quiet now, only the faint hum of the air conditioner and the soft ticking of the clock filled the air. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and her heart felt heavier than ever. She couldn't stop thinking about what had happened that morning. Every word from Mr. Juma, every gentle smile from Mama Ao, stayed in her mind like a shadow she couldn't escape. The shame she felt was not because she had been caught, it was because she finally understood how wrong she had been. She had treated someone with cruelty just because of her job, someone who had done nothing but work honestly. The thought made her chest ache. After sitting in silence for a long time, Lena stood up and looked toward the cleaner's small storage room down the hall. The door was slightly open and a soft light glowed from inside. She took a deep breath and began walking toward it. Her heels clicked softly against the floor, but this time she didn't walk with pride. She walked slowly, humbly, her eyes on the ground. When she reached the door, she saw Mama Ao sitting on a small wooden chair, folding clean rags. Her hands moved gently, her face peaceful. Even after all that had happened, she looked calm, not angry, not hurt, just kind. Lena's throat tightened. "Mama Ao," she said softly. The old woman looked up, surprised but smiling. "Ah, child," she said warmly. "You're still here?" Lena nodded, her voice trembling. I wanted to talk to you." Mama Ao put the cloth aside and motioned for her to come in. "Of course, come," she said. "Sit." Lena stepped inside the small room. It smelled faintly of soap and fresh air. There was a bucket, a broom, and a shelf with cleaning supplies neatly arranged. Everything was simple but clean, cared for with love. She sat down on a small stool beside the old woman, her hands shaking slightly. "I don't know where to start," Lena whispered. "I was so rude to you. I said terrible things. I thought I was better than you because of my job, my clothes, my education. But I was wrong. I was proud and foolish." Tears filled her eyes again, spilling down her cheeks. "I didn't know you were Mr. Juma's mother. But that shouldn't matter. You didn't deserve how I treated you. I'm so sorry." For a moment there was silence. Only the soft rustle of the rag in Mama Ao's hand could be heard. Then gently the old woman reached out and touched Lena's shoulder. "My child," she said softly, "you don't have to cry. We all make mistakes. What matters is that you have seen your heart clearly now." Lena sniffed, wiping her eyes. "But how can you forgive me so easily?" Mama Ao smiled kindly. "Because holding anger makes the heart heavy," she said. "Respect is wealth, it costs nothing yet it makes you rich. I have cleaned floors for many years and I have seen people come and go. Some are kind, some are proud, but all of them are human. We are all learning." Her words were soft but full of meaning. They wrapped around Lena like a warm blanket. For the first time she felt peace slowly return to her heart. I'll do better, Lena said, her voice firm but gentle. I'll never treat anyone like that again. I know you won't, Mama Ao said, smiling. The fact that you came to say sorry already shows your heart has changed. At that moment, Mr. Juma appeared at the doorway. He had been passing by and had heard part of their conversation. He stood there silently for a moment, watching the two women. Then he stepped inside. Mama, he said quietly, you've always had a way of teaching people better than I ever could. Mama Ao chuckled softly. Ah, my son, she said. A kind word teaches faster than anger. Mr. Juma smiled and looked at Lena. I'm proud of you, he said. It takes courage to admit when you're wrong. Let this be a lesson, not only for you but for all of us. In this company, every person matters. Whether they sit behind a desk or hold a mop, they are all part of one team. Lena nodded, tears shining in her eyes. Thank you, sir. I'll remember that always. After that day, everything changed for her. The next morning she came early before everyone else, and helped the cleaners arrange the office chairs. When Mama Ao arrived, she was surprised to see Lena smiling and holding a broom. Good morning, Mama, Lena said cheerfully. Let me help you today. At first, Mama Ao laughed and tried to stop her. No, you have your own work, she said. But Lena shook her head. This is also my work. It's our office. We all keep it beautiful together. Other workers began to notice. They saw the same woman who used to walk with her nose in the air now greeting the guards, helping the receptionist and thanking the tea lady. The whole office felt lighter, kinder. During lunch, Lena would sit with everyone, from interns to senior managers, and listen to their stories. She no longer spoke to impress people, she spoke to understand them. And whenever a new worker joined the company, she would smile and say, "Welcome to Kamba Tech. Remember, never look down on anyone, you never know who they are." Her words spread through the office, repeated again and again, becoming something of a motto. Even Mr. Juma used them during meetings sometimes, smiling proudly when he did. Months passed, and Lena's hard work and kind heart began to shine. She earned the respect of everyone, not because she was smart or beautiful but because she was humble. She learned that true success was not measured by money or power, but by how you treat others. One day as she walked out of the building, she saw Mama Ao sitting under the big jacaranda tree outside, taking a short rest. The purple flowers had fallen all around her, painting the ground in color. Lena walked over and sat beside her. "Do you ever get tired, Mama?" she asked softly. Mama Ao smiled. "Sometimes," she said. "But when I see people grow kinder, my heart feels young again." Lena looked up at the sky, feeling the soft breeze on her face. "You changed my life," she said. Mama Ao shook her head. "No, child. You changed your own heart. I just reminded you to listen to it." They sat in silence for a while, watching the petals dance in the wind. The city moved around them, cars honking, people rushing, but in that moment, everything felt peaceful. From that day on, Lena carried Mama Ao's words wherever she went. Even years later, when she became a senior manager, she treated everyone with the same respect she once failed to give. And she never forgot the lesson that had changed her forever. Respect costs nothing, but it makes you truly rich.